About the world, about Nigeria's external environment, well, 2013 is going to be an interesting year globally because I think it is what I call a pivot year. If you are British or Spanish or Greek, 2013 will feel awful. It will still feel pretty bad. But 2013 is one of the years in which more starts to get better than is getting worse. The good news about the financial crisis, I think, is that we are now halfway through in the developed world. The bad news, of course, is this is a 10-year crisis. So we have another 5 years or so to go. But do bear in mind that the dynamics of the global economy really are changing, and I think they're changing from the better. If you're thinking about the Eurozone will contract again. We think it will survive. I'm British, but I do like the Euro in its concept, and we think it will survive. We put about a 20% chance of collapse. It is still quite significant. If the Euro did collapse, it would usher in a global recession, and it would also add that it would usher in a European depression. So it would be very serious indeed. The good news here for you, because you are so connected to the US still, even though it is diminishing, is that the US recovery is actually quite strong. The animal spirits in the US are starting to stir, and the US growth outlook is actually looking quite good. In the US, it is all about the consumer, that the housing market is looking up, the jobs market is looking up, the US is starting to recover. If we're thinking of key risks to the emerging world, there are three that we've picked out. One is that you get a hard landing in China, and we give that a 15% chance. The Chinese government has a lot of policy issues to confront, not least the property market, not least how to turn China into a domestic demand-driven story from an investment story. There are many difficult things here for the new leadership to deal with. The Eurozone breakup we've dealt with. Also look for any increase in interest rates in the developed world, particularly in the US. The US recovery is gathering pace. It could be that the Federal Reserve decides to raise interest rates more quickly than we assume. If that is the case, as you've had in the past, all emerging markets tend to wobble. When the Fed starts to raise rates, all emerging markets tend to wobble. Look at the tequila crisis in Latin America. Look at the '97 Asia crisis. This is a moment of great stress, so look for this as well. Viewing Nigeria globally, actually your growth story is pretty good. We expect about 6 or 7% over the next few years. In my view, I look at the world, you could be growing much faster. You could be delivering Chinese growth rates if you can reform. There is a lot of potential here in this country. You can see this is our forecast in green. The line, I think that's the compound annual growth rate over the next few years. And Nigeria is definitely there at the top. South Africa, your big rival, of course, in terms of size, not doing very well at all. But as I said, the prospects for Nigeria really do look pretty good. For Nigeria, a couple of things that we like. One, of course, is that Nigeria is at a demographic sweet spot. There are only 3 bits of the world that are young now. India, the Arab world, and sub-Saharan Africa. The rest of us are getting old. And really, for growth, being young is a very good thing indeed. But of course, the absolute size of Nigeria's population is a great lure for lots of businesses. By 2017, we expect the Nigerian population to be running at about 190 million. If our growth forecasts are right, by 2017, the average household consumption per head by 2017 will be about $1,200, up from about $850 now. And one of the things about urbanisation, of course, is retail, and we do retail forecasts at the EIU as well. And this is a heat map here, and again you can see Nigeria in dark blue there and in red. This again is a very good sweet spot to be in, and just to give you again some regional comparisons, you can see that even though the Nigerian retail sector is only expected to grow by about 13.84%, in terms of absolute size at 125 billion over the next few years, this really is a great opportunity, and of course it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about in terms of urbanisation. You will not be surprised to hear where Nigeria falls down, and again this will come up repeatedly over the course of the day. Infrastructure, Nigeria is 80th out of 81, I'm afraid, in the forecast period. The labour market, 79th, and the political environment, 79th, and that reflects the security situation. So do focus on the improvement and do focus on the need for reforms. If you can get these reforms done, then as I said at the beginning, Nigeria could be growing at double-digit rates. It could be really a very interesting story indeed. Now I know the Nigerian government has set a target of being in the top 20 countries by 2020. I looked at our forecast for 2020 and unfortunately Nigeria doesn't quite make it in there. I think you're 33rd. That is an improvement, however, from 2010 where you were 40th. In 2020 you sit, in terms of the size of your economy, just behind Vietnam, but you are ahead of Belgium, which is fantastic news. In 2010, of course, you were behind Ukraine and slightly ahead of Algeria. So overall, I think the macro picture, the opportunities picture, actually does look very promising, but the key to the realisation of the promise here will lie in how the government actually is able to reform and how, of course, the private sector can contribute.